Hi everyone, Diablo 4 Season 10 has been out for a little bit more than a day now, and it turns out there were some pretty big undocumented changes, and one in particular I want to talk about, which is the Beast Cornered power. This is one of probably the most popular power that we were theory crafting around, made a lot of our builds around, and that a lot of people are using now and realizing, oh, I'm actually just dying from that. So it turns out that this works very differently from what it did on the PTR, and there was not really any note about it in the patch notes. So we figured it would be the same, but now when you spend enough resources, you just effectively die. So it's kind of hilarious how that works. And well, there needs to be some adjustments on many builds. So I guess at least for our Maxwell guides, our guys are already working on that. But I want to talk you through some of the kind of like short-term solutions at least, because some of the builds probably need some pretty major updates now. So if you use the Beast Cornered, what it says is that when you spend resources, you drain a percentage of your life equal to 30% of the resources spent. So effectively, if you spend 100 resources, you will lose 30% life. If you spend 300 resources, you lose 90% life. So you effectively just die if you don't have a barrier up at a time. So if you want to use Beast Cornered, then you will be kind of forced to have barriers in a build, because otherwise it will just yeah, like drain way too much. Now, obviously there are some builds that might not really spend any resources at all. So if you play, let's say, some kind of like basic build or something like the Shout Barb or something like that, where you just really kind of attack with something that doesn't cost anything, then this is totally fine because you're not spending any resources. But a lot of builds spend a lot of resources all the time. For example, here looking at like a Capeleke Spiritborn or something like that, you spend 100% of your resources, like 250 every swing, you lose all of your life effectively. Now there are ways to kind of like try to heal that back, and then even for a build like this to actually use Beast Cornered. But I also have collected like a few notes here about kind of like what you could do, what you could look into at least for now, to try to mitigate this whole problem a little bit and not just sit at like 5% life all day long. So number one, let's talk about this here. Obviously, you can use a different unique power. So in some cases, this might be an option. In most cases, probably not, because there's simply not really that many options here for unique powers. Like some of them are just kind of like, you know, bad or meme or don't really fit in your build most of the time. But there are also setups where, for example, you could pivot over to something like Brawn over Brains. So if you have the option to play an overpower build, then this could be a very easy solution here to maybe still get decent damage output and then still are really tanky, and you don't have to worry about this whole like healing problem. So another example here again with the Spiritborn, this is like a Capeleke build. We spend a lot of resources. We could actually get to the point where overpower is feasible on every single swing with something like Banishlord's Talisman. So this is probably like something I'll be looking into for some of those setups here as well. And then the thing is skulls. Well, the armor gems are usually relatively minor, and you can put the skulls here for healing received. So that is an option to just get more healing. Obviously, you need some sort of healing in a setup to make that possible, but this is something you can look into. Variana. So that's also something I have in my Spiritborn builds already, and this is an insane amount of healing depending on the build. But if you have high attack speed or you multi-hit enemies or something like that, Taste of Flesh from Variana can give you 2% of your maximum life, and this is before all of the healing received bonuses and so on. So you can heal up extremely fast all the time if you use Variana. So this is definitely something to look into. This can be very helpful. Then there's also some items: Enduring Faith, Temerity, and Doombringer. So Enduring Faith has like a very large percentage healing received value. It's kind of like a meme item for softcore players, not so much for hardcore players necessarily. But since the power level is so high this season anyway, it doesn't really hurt to throw in like a defensive item for once, and you're just going to be basically invincible and you have a lot of healing. So that could be something. Same with the Temerity, it has a lucky hit chance to heal you, and Doombringer as well. So if you combine this with like a high lucky hit build or Fist of Fate, then this could kind of solve this whole issue by itself. And let's talk about some class-specific stuff. So there is certainly some things that I missed here. I just kind of like wrote this down off the top of my head here. The Barbs, they have this auto-shout stuff going on, and Raid Leader. Raid Leader gives you 3% healing per second per shout, I think even. So it's going to be a ridiculous amount of healing there if you use that. Invigorating Fury is a passive when you spend resources, you gain health. So this can kind of help you with this as well. Druids have a Circle of Life and a Spirit Boon. So most builds on Druid are like nature magic builds. So you can just put 3 points in that, or 4 even with the Shroud. This is definitely worth investing into. And then there's also like a lucky hit percentage restoration from the Spirit Boon. Then we have the Necro. So Blood Orbs are probably like not the easiest solution, but there is, for example, the option to run Hemorrhage, and there's like a temper for it if you really want to, but otherwise you have to Corpse Tendrils in many builds. So that's something to look at. Gruesome Mending is an option here as well. This is just like more healing received on the passives. Iron Maiden, potentially, if you can kind of fit that in. At least on kill, you're going to get some healing. And then there's the Blood Getters aspect. I'm not 100% sure if that works, but it's the aspect where when you cast your Skeletal Priests, you'll get the buff that the Skeletons get. I think this also applies to the healing. So when you have your full skeleton army, then they will heal everything. And this is potentially a pretty good solve here as well. For the rogues, they have it relatively easy. Siphoning Strikes is insane. Like hit chances are really good on most rogue builds. So if you can run with that, then you should generally be fine. And there's also the potion spamming option. So Siphoned Rituals, for example. If you can somehow fit that in, just press potion all the time. This could also help. Then you have the Sorks. There's Warmth. This is just like passive regeneration. That can be a lot in some cases, especially in large density, because it scales with the number of enemies. And Flame Shield, not really such a great solution, but it could be something that gives you some restoration at least. And lastly, the Spirit Bonds, they actually have relatively good solutions here. So the one is, for example, the Vital Strikes. So some builds just kind of run that. I'll probably also check out if I want to throw this into some setups. And this gives you like a ridiculous healing because it's also scales with density, and you can also reapply this all the time to get lots of healing. And Scourge is also something with like, especially a very high cooldown recovery that the Spirit Bomb builds can have. You can have an insane amount of lifesteal here. This is just, not like a full like update for every guide now or something like that. It's just something you kind of look into that I wanted to get out here. If you are using Beast Cornered and you don't actually have a way around it, and you can't really build into enough like healing recovery or something like that anyway, then maybe there are some solutions here to look at. Either way, I'll keep you guys posted about whatever else we find out. So there's certainly more undocumented changes or bugs or whatever we're gonna find in the next days. So stay tuned for that. I hope everyone is having a good season so far. I had a blast. I'm just completely going ham with Druid and Sorg right now, and it's been really fun. But of course, sometimes stuff like this comes up, and we have to work around this. So for now, that's what I got here. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time.